with that, we'll just get right to it with Jason Lloyd from The Athletic and Mary Kay Cabot from Cleveland.com. Love checking in with these two following these Browns games. And Jason, we'll start with you here on all of this. I mean, you look at just what has happened this season, right? 3-6, the first 9 games. This has gone about as bad as you could imagine, right? Given everything we've talked about, that the expectation was still to win, given everything that happened with Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, I think everybody thought they had to be at 6-5, absolute bare minimum 5-6 to give him any sort of chance. And realistically, 5-6 probably wasn't going to be good enough. Now that's the best case scenario right now. You know, Myles Garrett was saying yesterday they still have a chance. They have to win these next 2. Okay, sure. And if I win the Powerball next week, you will not see me here next Monday. So we'll see which happens.
You told me you would do this segment next week if that happened. We welcome in Mary Kay Cabot from Cleveland.com. And before we get started on the Browns, Mary Kay, Jason and I, we obviously want to send along our congratulations to you. A big week, getting inducted into the Press Club of Cleveland Hall of Fame.
Well deserved.
Congratulations. Yeah, well deserved. And this has to be so cool for you.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, you guys. Such a nice column that Terry Pluto did over the weekend. I was very humbled and honored by that as well. So thank you very much.
Unfortunately, I still have to ask you your take on what has happened with these Browns. And we go to yesterday's game. You know, Mary Kay, the thing about yesterday is I don't think any of us were stunned that they lost to the Dolphins. They're a solid team. The Browns were a little bit of an underdog. But the way it looked, Mary Kay, it's just been tough to watch at some points.
Well, I don't think anybody really expected that the Dolphins were going to come out and just run it down the Browns' throats to the tune of 195 yards rushing. They should have expected it, though, because the brilliant Mike McDaniel, the former Browns receiver coach, now head coach of the Dolphins, you knew that he was going to have some trick up his sleeve, and that trick was to run the ball and take the focus, at least in the beginning, off of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. It really threw the Browns off. They haven't been able to stop the run all season long. It's a problem, and it will continue.
3 teams this year have set season highs on rushing against the Browns now. The Falcons, the Chargers, and now the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. Mary Kay talking about what the Dolphins were able to do on the ground. They came into that game ranked 29th in the NFL running the football. I mean, this Browns defense at times, it looks like Swiss cheese. And, you know, I just looked at some of the stats. Myles Garrett, Jason, 1 tackle. It's like...
Well, the best way to neutralize him and take him out of the game is to run the ball.
Yeah.
If you want to negate a pass rusher, just run it away from him, and you take him out of the game. The Browns have been terrible up the middle defensively all year long. Defensive tackle's been a problem all year. And I keep hearing they're not addressing the tackle. They're not addressing the tackle. They are. They just haven't picked the right guys. They signed Taven Bryan in free agency. They've drafted a defensive tackle in the 4th round or higher every year that Andrew Berry's been here. I think it's the only position that they've done that. They've tried. They just haven't been able to identify the right guys, and they haven't been able to develop them into serviceable NFL players. And it's a huge problem in the middle of the defense, not to mention, of course, the injuries they've had at linebacker.
And, Jason, we've talked about it on this segment. They have to run the football, right? They have to run the football. But here's the tricky part on all this. They tried to run the football yesterday. They weren't able to do it. I mean, they're kind of getting beat up in the trenches on both sides of the ball, too.
I mean, yesterday it was not a good day for the offensive line. Obviously, you know, Jedrick Wills had another difficult day. They were without Wyatt Teller again at right guard. And if you're an opposing team, who do you want to beat you? Nick Chubb or Jacoby Brissett? That's easy. Most teams are going to load up on them and try and take the run game away. You have to try and throw it a little bit, especially in today's NFL. And here's the thing. I mean, this game went from 10-7 to 24-7 like that. It's 10-7 at the end of the first half, and then Miami double dips. They score at the end of the half, and the Browns don't have like 30 seconds left. There's nothing they can do with it. And then Miami gets the ball to start the 3rd quarter, and they score again. Now it's 24-7, and by the time the offense gets back on the field, it's a completely different looking game than it was the last time they were out there.
Mary Kay, if you go to Twitter and you go to social media, people will talk about how bad the Browns defense is and that Joe Woods should be fired. I don't know. At this point in the season, do you anticipate something like that would ever happen where they're going to start getting rid of people and finding a scapegoat to blame this on? Or do you think that just the rest of the way they'll just kind of go with what they have?
Yeah, this is not a team that, you know, does the whole knee-jerk reaction thing. I think that they will sit tight with what they have and try to get better and correct some of the problems and maybe reevaluate everything after the season. I think there are a lot of personnel issues on the defense this year. There are injuries. I mean, when you think about it, Denzel Ward missed time. Jadeveon Clowney missed a lot of time. Anthony Walker out for the season. Not that it's an excuse, but they just haven't had any continuity on that defense. And then when they thought a lot of young young guys would step up and sort of pop and jump off the page. That really hasn't happened either with the Jordan Elliott's and the Grant Delpits and some of those guys the way they thought that it would. So I just think it's a defense in a state of flux right now.
Yeah, and to add to that, Jason, I mean, you want to hold people responsible, but like a guy like Kevin Stefanski, does this all fall on him given everything that happened with Watson? They go to 11 games. I mean, that to me had to change their internal expectations, even if they don't admit it.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course it did. And, you know, the Kevin on the hot seat thing has come up, and I just think it's crazy to talk about. Now, I do think maybe there are going to be changes to the staff and personnel changes this offseason. This is 2 years in a row now this defense has underperformed. You know, the second half of last year, they sort of put it together, and now it's just all unraveled on them again this year. So I do think that they may look at that this offseason. But in terms of Kevin, you know, I've made this point before. Kevin was one of the big selling points to Deshaun. So how can you make a change before you even get a chance to see how that looks? This whole season has been thrown into disarray from the time that they got him. I hate the word distraction. I think it's overused in the media, but it fits in this instance. It was a cloud that hung over this entire organization throughout OTAs, throughout summer, throughout training camp, throughout the preseason. They had no idea how long their quarterback was going to be out. And once that suspension went up to 11 games, it completely changed the dynamic and the complexion of this season. Jacoby Brissett has been better than I ever thought he could be, but he has still made those crippling mistakes at the end of games. And too many of the games this year, if Watson's here for more than just the last 6 games, I think we're having a far different conversation.
Mary Kay, quickly, Deshaun Watson will be back on the practice field this week with the team. What do you anticipate there?
Well, you know, they're going to have to find reps for him. They have to get him ready to start those last 6 games of the season. At the same time, they've got to get Jacoby Brissett ready to face the Bills and the Bucs and try to win both of those games so that Deshaun Watson has something to play for. So they will be playing a balancing act all week, trying to get Jacoby ready to go and Deshaun reacclimated into this football team in the event that he also has something to play for.
Mary Kay Cabot, Press Club of Cleveland Hall of Fame. Appreciate your time. Jason Lloyd, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Lena, back to you.